Okay, so what I'm talking about and did last week and this week is about how to prepare for the holidays for addicts. And in thinking about it this morning, last night and this morning, I was just going back over the years of, when my husband first sobered up. And he sobered up in January, and so he had a year of sobriety, almost a year of sobriety the next holiday season. And looking back at we were in the oil business, and the oil business equals you celebrate with liquor. I don't know. I'm hopefully that's no, it's still happening. I know. I mean, there's a lot of drinkers in the oil business, and that's the gifts that they would give, and that's the parties that they would give, and and we always did a big McCarty party for our employees, and then would invite customers and all. And I had 14 years in Al-Anon before my husband ever sobered up. And I was already a therapist, already working in the field. So I thought I knew a few things. I, you can know a lot. I forgot put my hearing aids on. You can know a lot of book work, in this business. But when it comes personally to applying it, to your own family and to yourself personally, it's a different thing. So I remember that first party, big party. I knew to take hands off. I knew I had to just leave that up to him, because like I said, he had almost a year of sobriety. But we had so many drunk Christmases. You know what I'm talking about, drunk Christmases. We would start off the day, everything was going to be wonderful, and it was until the booze came out. So, anyway, I remember that first Christmas party, and R.L. always, he was a big joker, and he always wrote a poem every year for the staff, and he would read it at this big Christmas party. And after he sobered up, they always said that his poems weren't as funny as they were when he was drinking, and they would joke about him not being as much fun since Tennie made him quit drinking. They would always add that, since Tennie made him quit drinking. And, so it was, but I do remember his first sober Christmas, and it was different. And our life revolved around AA and Al-Anon. And looking back, you can't go back and redo and undo anything. But our older kids had left home. They went off to college. And my youngest daughter was still at home. She was a senior. Well, she wouldn't know, but not when he sobered up, but when I sobered up from the food. That's two big calendar markers for our family, is when he sobered up, the changes that we went through with, in his sobriety. And then it was a big switch when I went to treatment. And not everyone liked it. There wasn't anyone in this town that supported me at all, 100%. I mean, no one supported me at all except my husband and my youngest daughter, Christy, because she was there longer and watched me, get sicker and sicker in my eating disorder. So I came home in October, so that first Christmas, it was tough. It was hard. In fact, that first year, I can't get over people being able to just do all of this early in recovery, early in abstinence, early from food or alcohol or codependency. And if they can do it and stay abstinent and sober, go for it. But I couldn't. They say they recommended, and I'd heard it and I'd recommended it to people. But when I left treatment, one of the things they said is, remember, you must change playmates, playthings, and playpens. You can't keep hanging out with the same people that you hung out with. because I had a beloved friend. Beloved Pat has passed away. But Pat, when she passed away, she had 55 years sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous. But she was a foodie. She was an eater. Now, she would, gain 10 or 20 pounds, and she'd go on a real strict diet. And I remember I went on every one of her strict diets with her, and she could lose it. And then, so she was my binge buddy. Pat was. And so when I went to treatment, I had to change that. And I lost Pat. I want to cry over it. I didn't lose her completely. But when I came back to this town, there was no support. We had closed OA. There was not one recovering person in this town, not one. And I'm feeling sorry for myself all over again just talking about it. It was not easy, but I had gotten so sick in my eating disorder. I knew that I had to make it a priority. And, I was the one that did all the cooking. I was the one that did all the gift buying. I was the one. I couldn't do it that year. I could not do it. And I have not done the holidays from that point to this like I used to do them. You could ask my kids. We have wonderful holidays, but I don't kill myself. I cannot, because getting too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired would be mine, would trigger me and back into the food. In September, I celebrated 40 years of abstinence and recovery from my eating disorder. I don't take that lightly. I do not. I treasure it because sobriety and abstinence is a gift from God. We don't do it. We cannot. You go to Weight Watchers, you lose the weight. An alcoholic can lay down the alcohol and the drugs, and what you've got is an untreated alcoholic. But by God, they're not drinking. What else do you want? I'm not drinking. So without recovery, what you have is a very angry person, whether they're in food or in alcohol, and when they lay down the food and the alcohol, those feelings begin to come up, and they must be dealt with and acknowledged. So holidays changed for us around here. And like I said, not everybody wanted to change with us. My husband and I, we were very, very active in AA and Al-Anon. We were just sort of the poster couple. I don't know. If you want to grow up and be the poster couple for AA and Al-Anon, we were just the ones that went to everything. We both sponsored a lot of people. We sponsored couples together. AA and Al-Anon was our life, and I worked in a treatment center, and but I was dying from an eating disorder while doing all those wonderful things for other people. So I remember coming back, and there was a big Saturday night meeting at the big club here, and it used to be 150, 200 people there, and it was an open meeting. What that meant, they would ask Al-Anons to speak as well as the AAs, and I had been gone. They didn't know, it had circulated through town that, I'm not all that important, but, through our kind of networking, people didn't know where I'd gone, what had happened to me. I just dropped off the face of the earth. And so I'd been home 1 week and a day, and I couldn't go to the first Saturday night meeting. I went to I was, been home about a week. We went to that Saturday night meeting, and I remember the guy that was chairing it. He's no longer with us. His name was Jack. And I knew he would call on me. He always did. And he called on me to talk. Well, I had just stepped out of treatment. I was newly abstinent. I was, white knuckling it because God had not removed that mental obsession, yet. So I could not keep from talking about what I had experienced, that I had just come out of treatment. And I remember my husband was a very gentle man. Till he wasn't, but anyway, I was the, kind of the fighter in the family. He was not. But I remember when the meeting was over, Jack came up to me and he land blasted me for talking about something other than alcoholism. And then RL and him got into a knockdown drag out. They didn't hit each other, but RL was so protective of me in my absence. He was really so proud of me. And so that was my experience in my beloved people in AA and Al-Anon. When I came home from treatment from an eating disorder, they didn't understand. They thought I was selfish. They thought I was an idiot. They thought I had gone to a spa in California. They didn't know. We did not. No one knew. And Arl and I both, bless our hearts, we suffered a lot from the community, the AA and Al-Anon community, because we were like pillars. And now here I was back, and I couldn't go and do all the stuff. We had to stop doing those Saturday night meetings at our home. We had a huge, big old playroom that we built for our kids, and we were 4-H'ers, and we built it so, for a lot of reasons, but primarily for kids and 4-H and all that. But on Saturday night, we had a big pool table, and every Saturday night after the AA meeting, we would invite any and everyone out to our house. And we did that for years after RL sobered up. And I could not do it. I could not do it that first few Saturdays when I came home from treatment. I couldn't do it. I told RL, I said, if you want to do it, go ahead, but I cannot be out there. I can't. I mean, I came home shattered. I always get amazed at people going through treatment, and then they plan a vacation the next week. How can they do that? I could hardly go to the grocery store. I was like a calf on new legs, just wobbly. I mean, my eating disorder stripped me just about of everything that I had. In recovery, it was hard. It was hard, and it was a lonely, lonely, lonely walk because there wasn't anyone to talk with. So I don't know why this is bringing up so many feelings, but I remember that first year, how lonely it was. So I drove to Fort Worth every Saturday morning to an OA meeting. Came back here and started meetings, and by the end of that year, we had an OA meeting every day of the week except on Sunday, and that's the day that I cooked. I prepared my meals. Every meal that I ate, I'd prepare on Sunday, and I quit preparing meals for the family, and that's the regret that I have, particularly with my youngest daughter, because everything changed. When I began to change, everything changed. Because my love language was cooking for people and hosting people and opening my home to people. I couldn't do that. It was like I had had a bad case of cancer and was on chemo and was home for the first time. And I watched people, I don't know if they didn't get as sick as I did. I don't know what it was. But I had an eating disorder since I was 4 years old. So that first year of recovery was tough. I hardly remember anything other than going to meetings and my meal plan and going to work. I couldn't even really counsel the men. I was the director, so I would get the counselors started there in that treatment center. And I would, there was no OA meetings online. There was nothing like that. There was no support. So I had to create support. There was one woman in this town that had been in OA with me before. And I called her and asked her if she would want to help me start the meetings back. And she said, well, I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think it helped me very much. I said, oh, okay, well, thank you. And I hung up that phone and I cried and I was walled. So anyway, it was tough. And if you don't have a hard time in recovery, I don't think you're really doing Right. It's hard to give up a substance. It is, because that was such a part of my life. The food, the overeating. And when you cut that amount of calories down that I was eating, down to the amount that was a sensible, 1,700 calories a day, that is what normal women are supposed to eat. But that was just a little bitty dab for me compared to what I had eaten before. And my whole body had to get used to it. And then losing my friend, my beloved Pat, we were bench buddies together. And I didn't lose her completely, but our relationship was never the same again. She'd call me at work, before I went to treatment. She'd say, "Hey, what you gonna do for lunch?" And I'd say, "What you got in mind?" And, we would go and to take a 2-hour lunch and do nothing but eat, and we would try this dessert and that dessert. And anyway, she was like my drinking buddy. And our relationship had to change when I got home, and it was never the same. But I'll tell you what happened, and it's just amazing. In February, after I came home in October, and my relationship with Pat had changed. And by the way, I sponsored a lot of people in Al-Anon. They recommended that I not sponsor one person in Al-Anon, and telling those beloved women that I had sponsored for years, I can no longer sponsor you. That was like breaking up a friendship, telling one of my kids, I can't be with you for a while, So my entire life changed. So Pat didn't hang out. She'd come to our house all the time, and the first thing she would say when she hit the floor, when she'd hit the door, "What have you cooked? What are you cooking? What you got on the stove?" And we were bench buddies together. And that changed, and Pat didn't come around. And so what happened, in February, I got a call from her closest, dearest friend, and she said, "Pat's crazy. Pat has gone crazy." And they were just talking about codependency. And there was a place up at Hazleton, the granddaddy of all treatment centers. And they had started a program for family members of addicts, but it was codependency. We did an intervention on Pat and sent her, she was 16 years sober at Alcoholics Anonymous. And we did an intervention and sent her to Hazleton. I can talk about her today because she's passed away. And she would be right here with me. She wouldn't care. She'd tell you. Because it saved her life. It saved her life. And she was the one. Pat was always a teacher. Whatever she learned, she came back and taught it to all of us. I don't care what it was. She'd go off and speak at an international conference, and she would meet somebody and learn something new. And she'd come back and teach it to all of us. She was a teacher. So she came back from Hazleton, and she taught a lot of people about codependency. And what we all saw about Pat is she changed. She changed. She quit caretaking alcoholics, And a lot of alcoholics need to go to Al-Anon because they over-care for alcoholics a lot of times. They love them to death, wanting to sober them up. So anyway, I don't know why I got into that. Now I will tell you, my husband's first year of sobriety around the holidays, it was not easy as a family member. And so family members, in my first year of abstinence and recovery was not easy on my family either, because the meals changed, everything changed. Everything changes. If everything is not changing in your life in recovery, you're not doing it right. It's just because everything changes. You have to change, like I said. You have to change playmates, playpens, and playthings. and when my husband sobered up, one of the biggest things were, that McCarty party. What were we going to do about the McCarty party? It wasn't any of my business. I had 14 years in Al-Anon, and I knew to take hands off. Earl chose to continue to do it, which they still do it. He paid for all of the booze. He paid for the big meal and all that, and the entertainment, and it was a big deal. If the oil business was good, it was a triple big deal. If it was low, it wasn't quite as big a party, but we didn't have as much to celebrate. But I remember those first years of his sobriety, and people coming up and putting an arm around him and saying, "Come on, Ariel, one drink will not hurt you." I mean, ever since you've been hanging out with this gal, talking to me, ever since you've been hanging out with this gal, you're just not any fun. You know that old song, you're not much fun since you stopped drinking. Well, his buddies didn't think he was much fun because he was the booze buyer. RL was a big spender, and he would pick up the bill for everyone. I remember we were out to dinner with a lot of AA people, and his sponsor lived in Norman, Oklahoma, and he was here. And we had this big gathering, and after an AA meeting, and Ariel always picked up the tab for everyone. So he was reaching for the ticket, and his sponsor grabbed his hand, touched his hand, brought his hand back, and he said, "Stop that." And from that point on, he said, "You take turns, you look around at how many people is in this group. You either pay for you and Tennie's bill, or you take turns picking up the tab." I'll tell you what, that was one of the hardest things my husband did, because that's how he got his good feelings about himself, was picking up the tab for people, buying people stuff, I mean, that way, that's how he got his good feelings. So that had to change in our lives, and I'm switching back and forth from alcoholism to eating disorders, but it's all the same. It's just a different substance, So I want to go back to those of you with, if the second year of, we think the first year of recovery is really hard. Second year, the first year is kind of tough. The second year is kind of the honeymoon, in sobriety and abstinence. But then it starts to kind of fade. You're no longer a brand new newcomer. There's other newcomers coming in. You're not the newbie. You don't get all the attention. And so you're just another member of the fellowship. You're just one among the many, And when that hit RL, because they carried him around on a silver platter, because we had all prayed, our church had prayed for his sobriety. AA had, anyone I got in contact with, we were all praying for my husband's sobriety, And so, when he got sober, it wasn't as much fun, and we couldn't have those big lavish parties, and he couldn't hang out with the salesmen. They'd come to town, and I knew when he had a salesman in town, I wouldn't see him until maybe the next day, or they would come in. He'd always bring them home, although they would have a hotel room, he'd bring them home with him, and and then they'd stay up all night in the pool room playing pool, and all of those things changed in sobriety. And people that you hang out with before are not going to really like you a whole lot. Well, you're just weird. You're just weird since you stay on that meal plan. Do you ever get off of that meal plan? I mean, and when I try to go to parties, I made this special for you. You used to love it. Well, I still love it, but I can't eat, So anyway, I'm just saying, for anyone new that's listening to this, I'm hoping there's some brand new people that will listen to this. And I get people contacted me that have seen this on YouTube. And they are new people. They can inch on this through YouTube and not be seen, but they can hear. And they're hearing some things. So I guess I'm really focusing this new people because holidays are difficult. Holidays are hard, you know. But they don't have to be. And after a while in recovery, they won't be. But even so, I want to just give you a few little pointers here, and then I want to give all of you time to. Well, the time I don't have much time. I want to give you a few little pointers. Is one thing is don't make any changes in your normal routine. During the holidays, keep your routine normal, particularly if you're young in the program. Keep it normal. If you normally go, if you're brand new and you've been going to a meeting a day, don't change it. Don't, and today we have no excuses because there's Zoom meetings, there's phone meetings, there's every kind of meeting available, And so don't change your meeting routine. Don't change calling your sponsor. Keep your routine going because that's the first thing that usually goes because we get so busy, So keep your routine normalized. And then the second thing is we had to do this. Now, I know alcoholics and recovering alcoholics, and I know people in recovery that for years, I could not keep anything in the house that I couldn't eat. That wasn't on my food plan. I would have stuff here for mealtime, but I'd make sure they cleaned the house out before they left, took it with them, because I didn't trust myself. That mental obsession for food took a long time to be removed. When that mental obsession is removed, food takes a normal place in your life. I'll tell you today, I can pretty much eat anything, but my wanting to eat anything has changed so much. I'm in a phase now I kind of have to, I didn't think I'd ever say this, kind of have to make myself eat. I think that's age, I don't know what it is, but anyway, once you have that mental obsession for food or alcohol removed, you're not dealing with the thought to drink or eat on a daily basis or every minute. And that is a gift from God. Do not throw it back into his face. That is a gift. If you receive that and that you get that reprieve, and you'll know when you get it with the food, because the food will not have the draw to you, that it did. And you will prepare those meals. I did it for years and years and years. And, I had to. I never went off the same meal plan for probably the first 20 years. Cam could probably tell you, she was around, but I didn't, she was very, very good to make sure there was things there that I could eat. And I didn't make a big deal out of it. I really didn't. I just took care of myself. And if I was going somewhere that I knew that they may not have what I needed to eat, I'd go to banquets a lot of times and take a little thing of food. Or I would eat before, or I would eat afterwards, You do whatever you can do to protect your recovery, to protect your abstinence. See your abstinence as the biggest gift, because true abstinence from alcohol and drugs sobriety is a gift from God. We cannot give it to ourselves. We do the footwork. God blesses the effort. He could zap us all. Well, I wanted him to knock that food out of my hand. And I just wanted him to say, stop that eating. God doesn't work like that. We have to do the footwork. Jeff, I'm sure, can I use you as an example? I'm sure he kept drinking thinking God was just going to strike him sober one day. I don't know. That's what most of us think. If we keep doing this, God's going to love us enough to strike us sober or abstinence. He doesn't. We play a part in that. We do the footwork, and then he blesses the effort. And we just do it in day-tight compartments. Dale Carnegie called living 24 hours a day in day-tight compartments. You just live for this day, day-tight compartments. The big book, the Bible, says live one day at a time. One day at a time. You have no fear for tomorrow, for today is the day that the Lord has made. You know, AA does call it living 24 hours. We got 24 hours to stay sober. And, I even got to go into bed early in my recovery because my eating, people would say to me, and my husband, now he knew, Christy and him knew, my youngest daughter, I'd get home from work and I would have a supper on the table when, we gathered. I'd never quit doing that. I'd never quit cooking meals, but I would have a supper on the table and I would eat with them. And then, Christy would go off with her friends or a basketball game or something, and Ariel would either go back to work or watch TV or whatever, and I would start my night eating. And I would stay up mostly all night, 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and eat. That's when I did my eating. I didn't do it out in public. And Ariel would tell people early on, he would say, even when I was real overweight, I didn't overeat in front of people. And he would tell people, well, I don't know why Tennie's overweight. She hardly eats anything. Yeah, not in front of him. So I had to change those patterns. I had to change the patterns. And my sleep is still very erratic, very erratic. But I don't get up in the middle of the night and go eat like I used to. I'll read or, get on Facebook, and that's, can be a problem. Kim is trying to sponsor me with my phone. She says, Mother, you stay on that phone too much. And I just stroll on it, anyway. But so nevertheless, you keep alcohol and food that you can eat out of the house. I know some alcoholics can keep alcohol in the house to serve to guests. Ariel and I chose never to do that. Never to do that. He never kept anything in the house. Not that he would, I don't know that he would drink it. I don't know what he would have done. But we chose not to have alcohol in the home. I recommend that to alcoholics, but it's up to them. So that mental obsession will be removed, and you can go to a bar. If you have business at a bar, if a customer wants you to meet him at a bar, if you're, have good, stable recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous, you can go there and order a soft drink or a club soda, something that is not alcohol, and you won't be tempted to drink. But don't try it too early. Don't push that. Wait till you are on solid footing for your sobriety before you start hanging out in bars. It's not a place for alcoholics to hang out. And neither is bakeries or Baskin Robbins a place for, eating disorder people to hang out. Or what is that place where those little things, Buc-ee's? Just for an overeater, if you're driving down any highway, and you need gas, and you come up on a Buc-ee's, particularly if you're early in recovery, unless your car is past empty, you just keep on trucking. You pass that Buc-ee's, there's not one thing in there that you need. Because a lot of times compulsive eaters in recovery, and I did that, will switch over to compulsive spending. So you get into Buc-ee's and you've got it all. There's the food, those cute little old chipmunks, and, trying to talk you into buying this and that and something else. Stay out of places like that. There's no place for you. There's nothing in there that people in early recovery need. That's what I'm saying about protect your recovery like it is a fine jewel, because it is. And it is a gift from God. And when we relapse is a part of recovery. That's one of the reasons the American Medical Association deemed it a disease, is because it did have a relapse component to it. So relapse is real. It is very real. And this time of year, it's even more real. So you have to Have you a plan of action? A plan of action, and then work your plan. Work your plan. And, change playmates, playthings, and play people, and play, anyway. So avoid keeping food and alcohol in the house, food that you can't eat. If you can't eat it, don't have it in your house. If they want it, they can go out and get it. And that's what Christy and Ariel would do. Ariel had a sweet tooth. He never brought anything into the house once that I got into recovery, nothing that I couldn't eat. He didn't quit eating sweets. After years of being in recovery, he could keep stuff here, and I wouldn't get into it. But I don't keep stuff here. I don't. Now anyway, I can keep a few things here for the kids, but I don't keep much here. Not that I'd get into it, I just don't want it around. Okay, so another thing is watch the holiday blues. We can kind of get into the holiday blues and start thinking about holidays past and all the fun we had and who has passed away. This is a grieving time. And for those that have lost, had a loss, whether it's a loss of an animal or a loss of a beloved parent or a spouse or anyone, a dear friend, if you've lost someone in the last year or two, the grieving around the holidays is going to be worse, and it's going to be real. Don't ignore it. Don't ignore it. Don't play like, well, it's not bothering me. I've done that grieving. I did my grieving. No, you're going to grieve the rest of your life. When a certain smell comes up, when a certain time of the year comes up, certain things you see on a screen, it's going to remind you of that loved one. And the grief can come back, but see it for what it is. You're missing that person. You're missing. It's a big missing. And write a letter to that person. Write them a Christmas card. Write down how much you're missing it. Do anything rather than reach out to your substance, because the heartache is real. It is real when you've lost a loved one. The first Christmases, the first holidays of ours, and I mean, it's been 13 years since Ariel had the absolute nerve to die and leave us. 13 years he left us. Anyway, but it's still hard to look at his place at the table. Now Spencer has taken that place, but we were eating a meal the other day and Spencer wasn't here, my grandson, and that place was empty. And we all noticed it. That was Papa's chair for years. So just let those feelings come up, notice them, honor them, and don't go overeat or drink or drug over them. That's not the way to honor someone that has passed away. Grieve them, cry over them, write them a letter. Talk about it. Talk to your sponsor. Family stressors, those old wounds, when you get around that family, you go in with that, I'm just quoting scripture this morning, but in the Bible it says have a breastplate of righteousness, like go in with the shield. When you go in with the shield, when you go in with the family. Now they're not the enemy. Do not think that they're the enemy. But if you've got, all families, I've never seen a family yet that didn't have some kind of upsets. If you have a perfect family, please bring them here and let us use them for show and tell, So family stressors, if you have a problem with your sister, leave it at home. Do not bring it in to that circle of, that holiday. Don't try to get anything settled. Don't try to drag her into the bedroom and I need to talk to you about so. Don't do that. Don't ruin your holiday in theirs. Keep those things. If you need to settle something with someone, do it later. Set an appointment. Talk to your sponsor about it. They will guide you. There's a lot of those things, those family stressors that you want to talk to your family members about, that if you have a good sponsor, they will say, just put them on this list and maybe one of these days you can talk with them. but come to me first. I kept people on that list for years. I mean, they died before she let me go talk to them. They got old and died before she gave me, permission to go talk to them. So many things that used to bother us doesn't make any difference. And those are the things that will trigger relapse. Those family stressors. Don't get into any of that stuff during the holidays. And if someone tries to start it, walk away. Just say, I am so glad you're here. I just love you. Merry Christmas. Turn around and walk off. And leave them sitting with whatever problem they want to talk about. I just love you. You're just the cutest thing. And oh, I love that sweater you've got on. And turn around and walk away. Don't get engaged. Don't let them hook you into that. Because this is to families. You need to walk your own recovery path. This is the thing about addicts. You got to go to meetings, you got to have a sponsor, you got to work the steps, you got to do this, you got to do that. Yes, and we do as addicts, we have to do that. But the family has gotten as sick, if not sicker, than the addict has. At least the addict knows what their problem is. Family members think the addict's the problem. Then the addict gets sober and the family gets sicker. So this is why the family must have their own recovery program. That's why we encourage in these intensives for the families of addicts to come do the intensive, because you can't get anyone drunk. Don't take that on. You're not that powerful, and you're really not. But you are not going to be able to have much a relationship with your family unless they go on this recovery journey with you. You can have a relationship, but it's going to be pretty superficial. So that's why these intensives are so good for family members, because they have rage at you. They are mad at you as addicts. As family members. You addicts, family members have so much anger at you for all the years you messed up those Christmases and all. And they can cover it up and think everything is wonderful because you're sober today. But underneath, they still are carrying that baggage of what they think you did to them, because a lot of times they don't understand the disease of alcoholism and eating disorders. You must educate them, and the way to educate them, recommend that they come do an intensive with us, because they would not have chosen you to be in a relationship with unless they had their own baggage that they carried in there. Sit with that, see what you think about that. Okay, holiday blues. Family stressors, those old wounds. Like I said, that's not the time to peel the scab off those old wounds. Leave that alone. And if you are seeing a therapist regularly, don't miss the appointment. Don't get too busy, or, well, I need to save that money and buy so-and-so. Don't. Don't spend the money for anything you go see that therapist. They will walk you through this. Keep in touch with your sponsor, because they've been there, done that. They're not going to be your therapist, but they'll walk along this path, this journey with you, and they'll share with you what they went through and how they went through it. They'll give you they won't tell you what to do, but they'll tell you how they did it and how their sponsor told them to do it. And how their sponsor told them. This is a generation. The disease is a generational curse. Recovery is generational joy. Generational joy if everyone gets on the bandwagon. So, finances. Watch your finances. Don't overspend during Christmas. It's not worth it. Spend within your means. Another thing is get out of yourself and go do something for someone else. Used to, when our kids were little, we went through a time of when the oil business was good, we had a lot of money. And when it was down, we'd go up and down, up and down, up and down. Anyone that's been in the oil business knows you ride a roller coaster. Well, when we were, anyway, we started a tradition when my kids were, I think Christy might have been about 8, and that would have made the others, young teens. And we started a tradition that we would find a family to take Christmas to, and I'd find them different ways. This is the criteria. I wanted to find a family because there's a lot of help for people out there that, really need social service help. But there's families out there that need a little help that do not qualify for social services help. What I wanted to find is a couple that was doing everything they needed to, that they could do to make a living for their family. They made a living for their family. They had very little left over for Christmas. The mother was working herself to death to make a good Christmas for the kids of what little they had and all that. And I would find families like that. And we, with their permission, we would take Christmas to them. And that thrilled my kids. That was the biggest gift. They would draw names of those. One time we had a family, I think, of about 6 kids, but my kids would draw their names. And then they would go shopping for them. That was the best Christmases that we would ever have, is when we did that. And my kids loved it. Anyway, get out of yourself and go do something for someone else. Go down to the Salvation Army and help serve. Go down there and help sort clothes. Go down there and help sort those winter clothes. People will come in there with kids with no shoes, kids with no coats. Go down there and help serve. Get out of yourself. And I'm speaking to myself too, not just you. So I'll leave you with this. A person all wrapped up in themselves makes a poor package. So unwrap the package that you've wrapped yourself into, and look at what is inside that package. You don't have to do everything from your heart, but let the heart guide you. With our brain, we think with our brain and we feel with our heart. You connect those two together, and that's what recovery looks like. Our brain, go shopping, engage that brain, kind of shut that heart off, kind of close that door to that heart when you walk into the mall, engage the brain. See what you got in your pocketbook that you could spend within your range. Otherwise, you're going to be facing all those bills to come January, February. That's what I have. What do y'all have? I know some of you have had long holiday seasons, many holiday seasons.